Hey, welcome back to another episode of Regenerative Farming News with me, Heather Heinrichs, a former journalist turned farmer turned passionate advocate for regenerative farming. In this week's episode, I'll be talking about a survey that found farmers believe health soil is just a fad, a debate about the future of land prices in Saskatchewan, cattle prices, and Australia lifting the ban on Canadian beef. I took a short break this week from interviews due to a busy week at work, but I have started scheduling more interviews for upcoming episodes. As always, please hit that follow button and share this podcast on your social media. The more people who learn about regenerative farming, the more we can create positive change in our food systems. Also, check out my Facebook page where you can post your comments and chat with me about the show. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me what you like about the show and what topics you want to hear about. Let's dive in. In farming news today, an article in the Western Producer says that despite scientists and governments' attempts to convince farmers to use practices that improve soil health, the farmers aren't buying it. Sabrina Perrick, a professor at the University of Calgary, says the topic of soil health is met at best with caution and, at worst, skepticism and rejection. The university did a study by surveying 117 farmers and did 37 in-depth interviews. The results have not yet been published, but Perrick told the Western Producer that farmers are not taking the idea of soil health seriously. She says they view it more as a contemporary fad to catch people's eyes, but that it's lacking substance or results. The Western Producer article quoted Perrick saying, quote, "One thing that came across clearly is that for a long time, producer knowledge and expertise has been ignored by scientists and policymakers." End quote. What does this mean? So farmers are being presented with these ideas like cover crops from a science and governmental avenues, but they don't like the ideas because they feel it discards their knowledge of how to farm. I can see how it's kind of like a slap in the face when there are people who have farmed for multiple generations, and they could easily feel insulted when they're told that Grandpa's methods are wrong. I'm excited to know that despite this challenge, many farmers are in fact taking this new knowledge and using it and seeing the results. Everyone that I've interviewed on this podcast so far are farmers here in the prairies using cover crops, no-till, and high-intensity grazing to improve their soil and seeing the first-hand benefits. In the article, the producer quotes a farmer from the year 2022 saying that there isn't enough moisture to grow another crop in the fall. It's understandable that farmers are stuck on the issue of annual rainfall amounts and believing that if they plant cover crops, they will use up too much moisture and not have as much left to grow their cash crop. If you have 5 inches of moisture and the cover crop uses 2, you'd think you'd be left with less water for your main crop. It seems counterproductive at first glance. But if you look closer, you will see that farmers are already losing that moisture when they till or spray and leave the soil exposed to the sun. But if they planted cover crops, they would collect that moisture in the cover crop, which would then go back down to the soil. The cover crop plants are not harvested off the land, but are pushed down or left to fall back down and cover the ground. The moisture in the plant goes back down and also prevents the sun from evaporating any more out of the soil. The crop is then seeded into by a disc drill, which doesn't disturb the soil, and seeds the crop through the old dead cover crop. Over time, multiple years of cover crops, soil increases its capacity to infiltrate rain and increases its water holding capacity. After a few years of using cover crops, rainfall becomes less of an issue and is used more efficiently. In his book, Dirt to Soil, Gabe Brown shows a chart of tests done on his land and 3 of his neighbors' farms. I'll post a picture of it on the Facebook page for you to see it. It shows the 3 neighboring farms tested at 0.5 to 0.7 inches per hour of water infiltration, whereas Brown's land was able to soak up over 30 inches per hour. Imagine getting a 2-inch rain and watching it run off of your land into creeks or puddling in the low areas when it should be soaking into your crops. Cover crops are an integral part of the regenerative system, which creates an environment in the fields where water gets utilized. Yes, initially when you first plant cover crops, it will use up moisture in your soil, but that moisture goes back down and covers your soil and absorbs future rain. Farmers are stuck on the idea that they have such limited rainfall. I hope they can start to see that investing in regenerative practices will allow them to better use the rainfall they get, and if enough land is regenerated, then we can also improve the local water cycle and create more rain. Every year on the prairies, millions of acres of land are left bare in the spring before seeding. Then, most of it is tilled by non-disc drill seeders. The soil is turned and exposed and loses moisture. Imagine if even just half of those acres had a cover crop that was seeded last fall and then rolled down before seeding. All of those plants respirating and putting moisture in the air would definitely make a difference in our weather patterns. In other news, there's been a bit of a debate about the future of land prices. A grain marketing analyst says that land prices are inflated and likely to crash. Landowners argue that provincial protections against out-of-country investors keeps the land values safe. In the article in the Western Producer, they quote Christian Herbert, who operates Herbert Grain Ventures, saying, quote, "In Saskatchewan, we're definitely undervalued to the world because we have one of the most protected land assets. I'm only an hour from North Dakota. If I moved my farm over the border, it would increase by $2,000 an acre." Farmland in Western Canada has seen seismic shifts over the past 50 years. From below $300 an acre in the 1970s to over $2,300 by 2021, values have soared, especially since the 2007 commodity surge. With a quick search on Hammond Realty, Saskatchewan land prices range from $1,300 to upwards of $5,000 an acre. The prices are fueled by strong crop markets, low interest rates, and local investor interest. There was a lot of news this week, and it's also worthy to note that Australia has opened up its borders to Canadian beef after being closed for 22 years due to the BSE crisis of 2003. This move signals renewed trade opportunities for Canadian producers, expanding export potential in a key international market. The reopening is seen as a positive step for Canada's beef industry, which is currently experiencing very strong feeder cattle markets. Low herd numbers have pushed the prices higher for the last few years, and now there is even more available market for Canadian beef, which should help our producers sustain good market prices even if the herd size increases. In lieu of an interview this week, I wanted to take time to talk about the subject of control versus freedom, farming on our own terms. Let's take a moment to talk about the influence of large chemical corporations in agriculture. According to grandviewresearch.com, the agrochemical market in Canada generated $7 billion of revenue in 2023 and is projected to grow to $10 billion by 2030. When companies are making that much money, they will spend a lot of it on advertising and sales to ensure that their growth remains steady. Imagine the pressure these companies are able to put on farmers with that much money. Constant advertising, university-led research, and agronomists to push their agenda. They want farmers to believe that fertilizers and sprays are the only way to farm profitably. Their profits depend on it. You can't drive down a country highway or open an agricultural newspaper without being bombarded by a billboard or chemical and tillage advertising. Contrast that with the message shared by Gabe Brown in his TED Talk, How Regenerative Agriculture Brings Life Back to the Land. Brown is a key influencer in the regenerative ag area, and he emphasizes that regeneration is about restoring soil life, not just reducing chemical use. It's a long-term investment in symbiotic systems that build resilience, from microbial communities to wildlife diversity. This approach offers real financial freedom to farmers. Instead of pouring money annually into external inputs, farmers who adopt regenerative principles like no-till, diverse rotations, cover crops, and livestock integration start seeing their costs fall. The soil becomes self-sustaining, and self-sustaining soil means a lot less profits for companies like Monsanto. That also means more money and power back into the hands of the farmer. It's not just better ecology, it's better economics. As input debts shrink and reliance on GMO crops decreases, farmers reclaim their power. They gain flexibility, resilience, and autonomy. Instead of being locked into a system that demands compliance, they can innovate locally and invest in their land's future. That contrast between corporate control and regenerative independence is at the heart of this conversation. Regeneration isn't just an ecological choice. It's a financial strategy built on soil health and farmer sovereignty. In his TED Talk video, Brown says, quote, "I tell people I used to wake up every morning trying to decide what I was going to kill that day. Was it going to be a weed? Was it going to be a pest? Was it going to be a fungus? I was going to kill something. Now today I wake up every morning and say, how do I get more life on our ranch?" Regenerative agriculture offers the promise of soil vitality, community connection, and importantly, economic liberation for farmers who want to farm on their own terms. When soil is restored to its full potential, like it was before the widespread tillage and chemical degradation, it becomes a thriving, self-sustaining ecosystem. Healthy soil is rich in organic matter, teeming with microbes, fungi, and earthworms, all working together to cycle nutrients naturally. In that kind of living soil, fertility is built from within. Plants grow stronger, more resilient, and more nutrient dense, without relying on synthetic fertilizers or chemical interventions. When the soil is truly alive, expensive inputs become unnecessary because nature does the work for us. We're incredibly fortunate to be living in a time when pioneering farmers have already laid the groundwork for regenerative agriculture. This isn't some new, untested technology. Hundreds of thousands of farmers are already practicing these principles. They've tested the methods, proven the results, and shown that it works. And not just in areas with lots of rain. Farmers are regenerating the soil in arid, desert-like locations. We are not talking about some hypothetical idea. We're talking about a proven system of principles that bring these results, no matter the rainfall. Remember the book I mentioned earlier, Dirt to Soil by Gabe Brown? The chart of tests done on his land and 3 of his neighbors' farms shows the 3 neighboring farms at 2 to 37 pounds of available nitrogen. Brown's farm tested at 281. That's a 153% difference. The phosphorus and potassium were similar, low to nothing on his neighbor's fields and incredibly high on Brown's farm. Tests like this continue to be done on regenerated land all over the world, and they keep coming back with similar results. The regenerated soil is fertile and abundant with nutrients, without the use of chemical inputs. This isn't some well-kept secret. It's not being hidden from the world. It's just hard for farmers to admit they've been doing it wrong for the entire history of farming. And the chemical companies want to keep things the way they are, and so they will continue to do everything they can to keep this change from happening. Mankind has tilled and plowed the land since we first started sowing crops. But now we have the opportunity to farm so much better and with much more ease. It doesn't have to be a fight against nature to grow a crop. We can farm with nature and do it right. Anything you want to know about regenerative principles is all over the internet. The knowledge is there, the models exist, and now it's simply a matter of more farmers choosing to implement these systems, adapting them to their own land, and helping shift agriculture towards a healthier, sustainable future. It's going to look different for each farm, and it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. But the 5 main principles remain the same, and they are working in every area of the world. High rainfall or low, semi-arid or even desert, it doesn't matter. Farmers are using these principles and restoring the land no matter the conditions. Maybe you're listening to this podcast and you're not a farmer, you're a consumer. Let's not forget, consumers play a vital role in regenerative agriculture, not just as end buyers, but as equal partners in reshaping the food system. When people ask where their food comes from, how it was grown, what kind of soil it was grown in, it sends a powerful message. Money talks, and if your money goes to farmers who are regenerating their soil, you help push the food systems to make healthy changes. Every voice in this conversation matters. Farmers think this soil health idea is just a fad, a trend for you, the consumer, to get your attention until the next trend comes along. Let's prove them wrong and keep this going. My tip for consumers this week is to talk to a local farmer who says they are regenerating their soil. Have a conversation with them and find out what they are doing. Then go and tell your friends. Every voice matters. Thanks for listening to Regenerative Farming News with me, Heather Heinrichs. There is so much to talk about that we haven't had time for yet. In our next episode, we'll dig into the connection between soil health and nutrient density in food, why what's beneath our feet truly affects what's on our plates. I'll also be talking about the growing issue of desertification caused by conventional cattle grazing, and how regenerative grazing practices can actually reverse the damage and bring life back to our pastures. You won't want to miss it.